Welcome to the Daily Vibecasting. Today, the U.S. and Iran are reportedly on the brink of a massive peace deal. The spy agencies just did a stunning reversal to buy up Anthropic's AI, and the U.S. job market is quietly mutating into an army of one. Let's cast the vibes.
Yeah, it's a heavy news day.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you take a step back and really look at the board right now, there's a very clear theme emerging across all of these stories.
Right, we're doing a massive deep dive today for you guys. As you listen, I want you to try and view these updates not as isolated events, but, like a global battle for infrastructure control.
Exactly, like who actually owns the systems that run our world, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Whether we're talking about geopolitical security, the software running your business, or the physical satellites beaming internet to your phone.
And of course, we're seeing what happens when that relentless pursuit of optimization clashes with incredibly messy human realities.
So let's start with the highest stakes global news, because the macro picture sets the stage for everything else, right? We've got this massive geopolitical rumor bubbling up today from the handle at unusual_whales.
Oh yeah, the peace deal draft.
Right, so they're highlighting an exclusive report from the Washington Times, citing a source close to the negotiations, that the U.S. and Iran are expected to announce the finalization of a draft peace deal by Sunday afternoon.
And the stated goal is ending the fighting on all fronts in the 2026 Iran conflict, right?
Yeah, exactly. And if you look at the replies to that post, traders are instantly treating this as incredibly bullish for risk assets.
Well, sure. I mean, market algorithms are programmed to buy on the word de-escalation,
Yeah.
but you have to separate the trader sentiment from the geopolitical reality here.
Because historically, these things don't pan out.
Yeah, historically, these anonymous reports about impending peace deals in this specific region often stall out. It's frequently just a negotiation tactic, floating a draft to the press to force the other side's hand.
I mean, I see the skepticism, but consider the timeline here. We had a Pakistan-mediated ceasefire back in April that held and was extended indefinitely.
That is true.
And recently, there have been credible talks about a 60-day extension involving nuclear framework elements and securing access to the Strait of Hormuz. So it feels less like posturing and more like a realization from both sides that kinetic war is simply too economically destructive.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment of the economic exhaustion.
Mm-hmm.
But the second-order effect of stepping back from kinetic conflict is that the battlefield shifts entirely to intelligence and cyber capabilities.
Right, which brings us to the domestic side of this equation.
Exactly.
This is exactly what I mean by the battle for infrastructure. While the U.S. is trying to negotiate peace abroad, they are aggressively arming intelligence at home. And this is where I need to pause because the reversal here is wild.
The Anthropic deal.
Yes. There's a post from @WatcherGuru highlighting a New York Times report that the Trump administration is finalizing a classified deal to let the NSA and other U.S. spy agencies use Anthropic's advanced AI models, specifically their Mythos system.
And to understand the gravity of this,
Yeah.
you really have to look at what happened just 3 months ago.
Back in February 2026.
Right. The administration directed federal agencies to completely stop using Anthropic's technology. They formally designated the company as a supply chain risk.
Because Anthropic explicitly refused Pentagon demands to allow their AI to be used in unrestricted mass surveillance and autonomous weapons.
Exactly.
So help me understand the mechanics of this pivot. The government bans them for having ethical boundaries, and now 3 months later, they are writing a $9 billion check for NVIDIA Blackwell chips just to run these intelligence operations on Anthropic's system. Like, how does that happen?
Well, the government hit a capability wall. You cannot regulate yourself into a position of strength, right? If you ban the most advanced frontier models from your own intelligence agencies because the creators have ethical boundaries, you are effectively blinding your own NSA.
So they realize that the intelligence arms race is fundamentally an AI arms race.
Yeah, the government blinked first. They agreed to data protections, barring the use of the AI on Americans' data, just so they could get access to the tech.
Because falling behind adversaries who do not have those ethical qualms is a far greater national security threat than compromising on domestic data usage policies.
Precisely.
But the contradictions coming out of Washington on this are staggering. I mean, they are treating AI as the ultimate national security priority, throwing billions at hardware.
Yeah.
but at the exact same time, they are actively jeopardizing the people who build it. A post from @Kimenesmus brought up a new Department of Homeland Security and USCIS policy.
The consular processing mandate.
Yes, it requires temporary visa holders in the U.S. to return to their home countries for their green card applications.
And this is a bureaucratic mechanism that sounds mundane but has massive structural impacts. Consular processing means you cannot just adjust your immigration status while sitting in an office in Silicon Valley.
Right, you physically have to leave the United States, fly to the U.S. Embassy in your home country, submit your paperwork, and wait for an interview and approval before you can re-enter.
And think about who this impacts.
If we look at data from the Center for Security and Emerging Technology, over 65% of U.S. AI PhD candidates are foreign-born. This hits the frontier labs directly. OpenAI, Anthropic, Google.
Right.
It's like trying to win the space race, but intentionally locking your best rocket engineers out of the building right before launch.
Well, the stated goal of the policy is to enforce anti-loophole laws and prevent visa overstays.
Sure.
But the reality of consular processing is that it often takes months and sometimes years due to backlogs. So if an essential AI researcher from a rival nation is forced to return home and gets stuck waiting for a U.S. visa, what do you think happens?
Their home government detains them, or a rival tech firm recruits them.
Exactly. You're actively packaging up the intellectual property you need for national security and shipping it to your adversaries.
And if you want to know why the U.S. government is suddenly so terrified of losing this AI capability, you just have to look at what these models are currently doing to the domestic economy. They aren't just parlor tricks anymore. They are literally becoming the workforce.
Which really brings us to the structural break in the U.S. job market.
Yeah, so I was looking at data shared by @Kobasi Letter. Right now, U.S. business applications are sitting at around 500,000 a month.
Which historically looks like a massive economic boom.
Right, but the data shows that high-propensity applications, meaning businesses that indicate they are actually going to hire human employees, have plummeted.
Wow, really?
Yeah, over the last 2 decades, they've dropped from making up about 60% of all applications down to just 30%. And of that 30%, only 1 in 3 actually end up hiring anyone.
So we have record business formation with zero job creation. I mean, this is a mutation of the traditional corporate model.
Definitely.
We're seeing a structural shift towards solopreneurship. People are forming LLCs for gig work, consulting, or highly automated digital storefronts.
And the traditional narrative is that hiring and managing human beings has just become too expensive and complex.
Yeah, but I think the real mechanism here is that AI has completely eliminated the need for a corporate middle class. Think about your own workplace. How many tasks are just moving data from one silo to another or managing basic logistics?
Exactly. Let me give you an example from Mark Andreessen at PMarca on X. He shared an account of a non-developer who used Claude AI to rapidly build a completely custom inventory, maintenance, and invoice tracking portal for their company.
Oh, wow. A non-developer.
Yeah, and it perfectly integrated with their legacy systems and replaced dozens of manual spreadsheets. They didn't hire a single developer or buy a massive enterprise software package.
See, if a non-technical employee can build a custom, secure operational portal over a weekend for $20 a month, the entire business-to-business software as a service market collapses.
Right, you don't need a massive annual licensing fee for Salesforce or SAP if you can generate a bespoke alternative on the fly.
And the capabilities are accelerating too.
Totally. Greg Brockman at GDB, the president of OpenAI, shared a demo of their Codex model. It autonomously built and debugged an entire iOS feature.
But it wasn't just generating text code, right?
Right. It was using its computer use vision capabilities to actively interact with an iPhone simulator. It would inspect the screen, click on user interface elements like a Show More button, input test text, observe what happened, and then fix its own bugs.
That is wild. The mechanism of closing the loop is what really matters there. Previously, an AI coding assistant required a human in the middle.
Right. The AI wrote the code, you pasted it into the compiler, you got an error, and you pasted the error back to the AI.
Exactly. Codex is now autonomously interacting with tools like Xcode Build, which is Apple's background engine that actually compiles raw code into a working app. It is running the engine, reading the outputs, and iterating without human intervention.
And developers are already entirely reliant on this workflow. At the Socho, a developer at OpenAI posted about a recent bug they had in Codex. They tried to optimize the system's cache hit rates.
Right, and for context, cache hit rates are basically how efficiently the AI remembers the recent context of a long coding session so it doesn't have to reread everything from scratch.
Right. It's like it's short-term memory efficiency. Well, the optimization backfired, the cache hit rates dropped, and users' usage limits started draining instantly during long tasks. They had to roll the update back.
Wow.
But the absolute panic in the developer community before the fix really showed how deeply the entire industry relies on these models acting as autonomous junior developers. We are moving toward an economy of trillion-dollar tech giants providing the AI models and million-person armies of one using those models.
Yeah, and the losers are middle management, junior coders, and traditional enterprise software sales teams.
But here is the trap for that army of one. The solopreneur economy relies entirely on digital infrastructure functioning flawlessly. And right now, a few massive conglomerates completely own the infrastructure and the rules.
Yeah, let's look at who owns the sky.
Right. At Yunta_Tsai, a senior staff engineer at Tesla AI, posted about a staggering achievement during the latest flight test of the V3 Starship vehicles.
This was the plasma thing, right?
Yes. SpaceX managed to stream flawless 4K video live from the rocket while it was in hypersonic flight through atmospheric plasma.
And from a physics standpoint, that is incredibly difficult to achieve. When a spacecraft re-enters the atmosphere at hypersonic speeds, the friction superheats the air around it, stripping electrons from the gas molecules and creating a sheath of plasma.
Right.
And this plasma field absorbs and reflects radio waves, which historically causes a complete communications blackout for several minutes. You simply cannot get a signal through it.
But Elon Musk explained the mechanism they used to bypass physics. They exploited a plasma gap in the leeward aft region of the rocket, basically the aerodynamic shadow in the back where the plasma is thinnest.
Oh, clever.
Yeah. They used upgraded Starlink cameras to punch a signal up through that gap, hitting multiple Starlink satellites simultaneously to maintain the feed.
It is brilliant engineering. But if we connect this to the broader theme of infrastructure control, Starlink is rapidly becoming an unavoidable global monopoly.
Yeah, they are the default internet for space operations, and they are taking over terrestrial infrastructure too. The @Starlink account just announced a collaboration connecting 140 remote Amazon schools in Brazil to high-speed internet. That is 14,000 students getting access to online learning.
Which is undeniably incredible humanitarian work.
Absolutely.
It is. But they're also monopolizing commercial aviation. Ryan Peterson, the CEO of Flexport, posting as at Typesfast, pointed out that legacy airlines like Air France and British Airways are rolling out free Starlink Wi-Fi across their fleets.
While budget European carriers are stuck with terrible, spotty service.
Exactly. The infrastructure itself is now a competitive moat owned by a single entity.
Let me stop you there, because unavoidable monopoly is a pretty strong phrase. What about Amazon's Project Kuiper? Or traditional nationalized telecom networks? Are we really saying one private company owns the sky?
I mean, I am. Project Kuiper is years behind in deployment, and traditional telecoms rely on laying physical fiber, which is geographically limited.
True.
SpaceX owns both the launch vehicles and the satellite network. They can deploy infrastructure cheaper and faster than any nation-state. They effectively own the rails of the modern internet.
And that level of consolidated control brings us to a massive warning from Mark Cuban. Under his handle at McCuban, he posted a reality check about the current push for sweeping deregulation.
Oh, right.
Yeah, the popular argument right now is that if you just remove government regulations, the free market will drive down prices through competition. Cuban flat out rejects that premise in our current environment.
Because he is drawing directly on his experience building cost-plus drugs, where he has been fighting entrenched pharmaceutical middlemen.
Exactly.
His core argument is about regulatory capture. When an industry is dominated by massive, vertically integrated conglomerates, those conglomerates actually dictate the rules of the game, not the government.
Let's use an analogy here, because people often talk about tech giants building walled gardens. But it is much worse than that. It's like these massive conglomerates own the only paved highway in the world. And everyone else, every small business, every solopreneur is trying to deliver packages on dirt roads.
That is a much more accurate way to look at it. If you remove the government speed limits and tolls from that paved highway, the monopoly owner isn't going to lower the cost of driving on it.
Right. They know you have no other viable route.
Exactly. They will just squeeze the consumer harder. Cuban's point is that aggressive antitrust breakups have to happen before you pull back government oversight. Otherwise, you are just handing total control to the infrastructure monopolies.
So We have an economy shifting to isolated armies of one, completely reliant on digital infrastructure controlled by monopolies, who are operating increasingly above the reach of traditional government regulation. How does all this structural optimization affect us on a human level?
Yeah, that's the big question.
Because this obsession with efficiency is trickling down into how we act socially. We are basically optimizing the humanity right out of our daily lives.
Well, it alters our cultural baseline.
Hmm.
When your professional life is entirely about maximizing leverage and minimizing friction, you start applying those same metrics to your personal life.
Exactly. I saw a viral post from at Signal that really struck a nerve. They noted that going out has suddenly become a negative cultural signal.
Wait, really? Going out is a negative signal now.
Yeah. Think about the last time you just wandered around a city without a plan or met up with friends with no set agenda. Historically, that meant you were social and connected. Now, according to this cultural shift, it implies poor time management or a lack of focus.
So we have successfully turned unstructured leisure into a sign of failure.
Basically, yeah.
I mean, if everyone perceives themselves as a highly optimized one-person business trying to lock in, then any social activity that doesn't have a clear, pre-planned return on investment feels like a loss of productivity.
We are optimizing the fun out of absolutely everything. Look at this test posted by @ChrisCrypt. He asked the older GPT 3.5 model and the brand new GPT 5.5 Pro the exact same prompt. Explain why pizza tastes good in 2 sentences.
Okay, and what happened?
GPT 3.5 gave a totally normal, chill answer. It talked about savory tomato sauce, melted cheese, and a crispy crust hitting your taste receptors.
A very human answer. How did the newer, highly optimized model respond?
Well, the GPT 5.5 Pro model took 26 seconds to calculate its response, and it delivered dense food science. It explained the Maillard reaction,
Oh boy.
which, if you don't know, is the chemical process between amino acids and reducing sugars that makes food turn brown and crispy when baked. It broke down the precise fat-salt-acid balance, caramelization, and umami.
So it was technically flawless?
Yeah, and completely devoid of the actual joy of eating a slice of pizza. And the community hated it. They preferred the older model because it didn't sound like a chemist analyzing a specimen.
But that instinct to analyze the specimen is everywhere now. The market demands a metric for everything. Polymarket highlighted a Chinese startup that is selling a $118 smart collar, claiming it acts as a 95% accurate AI pet translator using Alibaba's Qwen language model.
Which is absurd on its face.
Totally.
As one skeptic in the replies pointed out, these AI models train on clean, isolated studio audio. In the real world, a dog's bark is chaotic, situational noise. Dogs don't have a structured vocabulary you can map to a 95% accuracy metric.
Right, but we are so desperate to quantify our lives that we buy into the illusion.
It is an intolerance for ambiguity.
We even see it in the architecture of the web itself.
Mm-hmm.
Ben Dicken, a developer posting as @BenjDicken, jokingly announced he was going to rewrite the entire Postgres database system in the Rust programming language just for the ultimate performance, calling it Roastgress.
And the joke lands because there is a massive trend right now of developers rewriting perfectly functional, decades-old legacy systems in Rust just to squeeze out marginal, microscopic gains in memory safety and execution speed.
It's just nonstop.
We are treating life like a pending software update. If we can't translate the dog's bark to a scientifically verified dashboard metric, or break down the pizza crust into a chemical equation, or rewrite the database in Rust, we consider our reality to be buggy. We are staying in debug mode instead of just living.
It really is the defining paradox of this era. I mean, we have gained unbelievable technical leverage. We can build enterprise software over the weekend, beam 4K video through a hypersonic plasma field, and run global intelligence agencies on AI.
Yeah.
But in exchange, we are completely losing our tolerance for friction, for messiness, and for basic human existence.
So to quickly wrap up this thematic journey we've been on today for you guys, we started with a macro battle for control, the NSA reversing course to buy up Anthropic's AI because they cannot afford to lose the intelligence arms race.
While simultaneously, a visa policy threatens to deport the very talent building those models.
Right. We looked at how that same AI is restructuring the domestic economy, hollowing out the corporate middle class, and empowering a solopreneur army.
And we explored how those armies of one are entirely dependent on infrastructure monopolies like Starlink.
Yeah, operating on a scale that makes traditional government deregulation incredibly dangerous, as Mark Cuban warned.
Absolutely.
And finally, we saw how that relentless, unavoidable drive for optimization has trickled down into our culture, where calculating the chemical reaction of your pizza and staying home to optimize your life is the new flex. and unstructured human connection is viewed as a bug in the system.
Well, based on the structural shifts we discussed today, I have a very specific prediction for tomorrow. Look for traditional B2B software companies, the legacy CRM and logistics platforms, to report brutal earnings misses over the next few quarters.
You think so?
Oh, definitely. The market analysts will get on TV and blame macro conditions, interest rates, or enterprise budget cuts. But the underlying truth is much quieter. A million solopreneurs just realized they can build their own custom infrastructure tools with Claude for $20 a month, and they are never going back to the old walled gardens.
Keep your APIs open and your vibes checked. We'll see you tomorrow.
Oh.
But as you go about the rest of your day, whether you are managing a team or just trying to enjoy your dinner, I want you to think about that hyper-optimized X-ray machine we apply to our lives. We want everything diagnosed, measured, and perfectly efficient. But if we actually manage to optimize every single piece of friction out of our daily routines, are we still actually living, or are we just executing code?